Maya moved silently through the dense forest, her steps light and deliberate. The air was thick with the scent of moss and damp earth, and the faint hum of insects filled the silence. She had lived here for years, far from the bustling cities of her people, choosing solitude over the judgmental stares and whispered rumors. Her kind were wary of humans, creatures who had once come to their world seeking resources, but left behind scars that still lingered in the collective memory of Scytherus. She paused by a stream, crouching low to examine the reflection staring back at her. Her skin shimmered faintly under the dappled sunlight filtering through the canopy above, a trait unique to her species. To outsiders, it might have seemed beautiful, even otherworldly. But to Maya, it was just another reminder of how different she was, and how vulnerable those differences made her. The stories told around campfires when she was young had warned her about humans. They spoke of betrayal, exploitation, and pain. Some said humans saw her kind only as tools, vessels meant to carry life that could thrive in harsh environments. Others claimed they cared nothing for bonds or emotions, taking what they wanted without thought or remorse. Whatever the truth, one thing was certain: letting a human near her, let alone allowing one to breed with her, was unthinkable. Still, Maya couldn't deny the curiosity that sometimes gnawed at her. Humans fascinated her, not because of their technology or their ambitions, but because of their contradictions. They were capable of such cruelty, yet also of kindness. She had seen glimpses of this during rare encounters with traders passing through her territory. Most kept their distance, respecting her warnings not to come closer. But there were moments when their eyes met hers, and she saw something flicker, a spark of recognition, perhaps, or maybe just pity. It wasn't until late afternoon that Maya noticed the smoke. At first, she thought it was a trick of the light, but as she climbed higher onto a rocky outcrop, the acrid smell confirmed her suspicions. Something, or someone, was burning nearby. Her instincts screamed at her to turn away, to retreat deeper into the safety of the woods. Yet something else pulled her forward, a mix of caution and morbid curiosity. When she reached the source of the smoke, her breath caught in her throat. A large metal craft lay crumpled in a clearing, its hull scorched and broken. Pieces of debris littered the ground, and the faint crackle of flames licked at the wreckage. Maya's heart pounded as she scanned the area. Then she saw him. A man lay unconscious near the wreckage, his body battered and bleeding. His clothes were torn, and dirt smeared his face, but even in his weakened state, he radiated resilience. Maya hesitated, frozen between fear and compassion. This was a human, one of them. Everything inside her told her to leave him there, to let nature take its course. But as she watched him stir weakly, groaning in pain, her resolve wavered. For a moment, she considered the consequences. If anyone found out she had helped a human, especially one who might be dangerous, she would face exile, or worse. And yet, as she knelt beside him and saw the raw vulnerability etched into his features, she felt an unfamiliar pang of sympathy. He was alone, injured, and completely at her mercy. With a deep sigh, Maya made her decision. She slipped her arms beneath his shoulders and began dragging him toward her shelter, ignoring the voice in her head whispering warnings. For now, all that mattered was keeping him alive. What came after that? She didn't know. All she knew was that this act of mercy might change everything, for better or worse. End of document. The shelter was small but sturdy, built into the side of a hill and camouflaged by thick vines and leaves. Maya dragged the unconscious man inside with effort, her muscles straining under his weight. Once inside, she laid him gently on a mat made from woven grasses. The air smelled faintly of herbs and damp soil, a comforting scent that usually calmed her nerves. But today, it did little to ease her tension. She studied him closely for the first time. His face was pale, smudged with dirt and dried blood. A jagged cut ran along his temple, and his breathing came in shallow gasps. Despite his injuries, there was something about him. His strong jawline, the calloused hands resting limply at his sides that hinted at strength and endurance. Maya wondered what had brought him here, so far from wherever he called home. For hours, she tended to his wounds as best she could. Using water from a nearby spring, she cleaned the gash on his forehead and wrapped it with strips of cloth torn from an old tunic. She applied a paste made from crushed leaves to reduce swelling and prevent infection. Every movement was deliberate, careful not to cause him more pain. But even as she worked, she couldn't shake the feeling of unease creeping over her. What if he woke up angry? What if he tried to hurt her? By evening, the man began to stir. His eyelids fluttered open, revealing eyes the color of storm clouds. For a moment, he stared blankly at the ceiling of the shelter, confusion etched across his face. Then his gaze shifted to Maya, who stood frozen a few feet away, unsure of what to do next. "Where?" he croaked, his voice hoarse and weak. Maya took a step back, instinctively putting distance between them. She didn't speak, afraid that words might make the situation worse. Instead, she pointed to a clay jug filled with water and gestured for him to drink. He hesitated, his eyes narrowing slightly as he studied her. But thirst won out over suspicion, and he reached for the jug, taking slow sips. "My name's Ethan," he said finally, his voice steadier now. "I'm grateful for your help." Maya flinched at the sound of his voice. It was softer than she expected, almost gentle. She nodded once, acknowledging his words, but still said nothing. Her silence seemed to unnerve him, and he glanced around the shelter, taking in its simplicity. "What is this place?" he asked, his brow furrowing. "And who are you?" Maya crossed her arms tightly over her chest, her shimmering skin catching the dim light of the fire she'd lit earlier. She debated whether to answer him at all. Finally, she spoke, her voice quiet but firm. "This is my home. You crashed near here. I found you." Ethan looked surprised to hear her speak, though he quickly masked it. "Crashed," he repeated, running a hand through his short, dark hair. "Right. The ship." His expression darkened as fragments of memory returned. "It went down. We were ambushed." "We?" Maya echoed, her curiosity getting the better of her. "The crew. My team." Ethan sighed heavily, wincing as pain shot through his body. "I don't know if anyone else made it." Maya felt a pang of sympathy despite herself. She knew what it was like to lose people, to feel alone in a vast, indifferent world. Still, she reminded herself that he was human, and humans were unpredictable, dangerous, even. She turned away, busying herself with stirring a pot of stew simmering over the fire. The aroma of roasted roots and wild greens filled the shelter, masking the lingering scent of smoke. "You should eat," she said after a while, ladling some of the stew into a wooden bowl and handing it to him. Ethan accepted it cautiously, nodding his thanks. As he ate, he continued to watch her, his gaze thoughtful. "You saved my life," he said between bites. "Why?" Maya froze, the question hitting her like a blow. Why had she saved him? She could have left him to die, spared herself the risk of betrayal or harm. Yet here he was, sitting in her home, eating food she had prepared. The truth was complicated, messy, and not something she was ready to share. Instead, she simply shrugged. "You were hurt. Dying. I couldn't leave you." Ethan studied her for a long moment before nodding slowly. "Well, thank you. Whatever your reasons, I owed you." Maya didn't respond. She turned back to the fire, pretending to focus on the flames, but her mind raced. This man, this stranger, had already disrupted her carefully constructed solitude, and she wasn't sure how, or if, she could push him out again. End of document. Days passed, and Ethan grew stronger with each one. Maya kept her distance during the day, tending to her chores or gathering food from the forest while he rested. But at night, when the fire crackled softly in the center of the shelter, They found themselves sitting across from each other in uneasy silence. The air between them was heavy with unspoken questions and guarded glances. Ethan tried to break the tension. He asked about her life, her people, the planet she called home. At first, Maya answered only with short, clipped sentences, careful not to reveal too much. But as the days went on, she began to soften, sharing small details about the forest, the animals that lived there, and the plants she used for medicine. She spoke cautiously, always watching his reactions, waiting for any sign of judgment or greed. To her surprise, Ethan listened intently, nodding thoughtfully without interrupting. One evening, after a long day of gathering berries and repairing tools, Ethan cleared his throat. "You've done so much for me," he said, his voice quiet but sincere. "Let me help you. I can't just sit here while you do all the work." Maya hesitated, unsure how to respond. She had never let anyone share her burdens before, not since leaving her village years ago. But Ethan's offer wasn't demanding. It was genuine. Reluctantly, she handed him a knife and gestured toward a pile of wood near the entrance of the shelter. "You can cut these into smaller pieces for the fire," she said, her tone firm but not unkind. Ethan nodded and got to work. His movements were slow at first, hindered by lingering pain, but he soon found a rhythm. As he worked, Maya stole glances at him, noticing the way his hands moved with precision and care. There was something oddly comforting about having him there, doing something simple yet meaningful. The next morning, Ethan surprised her again. While she was out collecting water, he wandered into the nearby clearing and started gathering fallen branches and leaves. By the time she returned, he had built a makeshift rack for drying herbs and roots. It wasn't perfect, but it was functional, and it showed effort. "You didn't have to do that," Maya said, setting the jug of water down beside him. "I wanted to," Ethan replied, brushing dirt off his hands. "I'm tired of feeling useless." Maya didn't argue. Instead, she gave him a small, reluctant smile, a rare gesture that made Ethan's chest tighten with warmth. For the first time since waking up in her shelter, he felt like he was proving himself, not just as someone who could survive, but as someone who could contribute. Despite their growing cooperation, an invisible wall still stood between them. Maya remained cautious, her smiles fleeting and her words measured. Ethan noticed this and decided to broach the subject one night as they sat by the fire. "Maya," he began, his voice hesitant, "why are you so afraid of me?" Maya stiffened, her eyes flickering to the flames. She didn't answer right away, choosing instead to poke at the fire with a stick. When she finally spoke, her voice was low and tinged with sadness. "Humans have hurt my people before. They came here looking for power, for resources. They took what they wanted and left us broken." Ethan frowned, guilt twisting in his gut. He couldn't deny the truth of her words. Humanity's history was riddled with conquest and exploitation. "I'm not like that," he said quietly. "I swear I'm not." Maya glanced at him, her expression unreadable. "Maybe you're not, but how can I trust you? How can I know you won't change?" Ethan opened his mouth to respond, then closed it again. He realized there was no easy answer to her question. Trust couldn't be demanded, it had to be earned. And earning Maya's trust would take time, patience, and proof that he truly meant no harm. For now, all he could do was show her through his actions. So he stayed quiet, letting the crackling fire fill the space between them. Slowly, Maya relaxed, leaning back against the wall of the shelter. Though the tension hadn't fully disappeared, it felt lighter somehow, as if a tiny crack had formed in the wall separating them. As the night wore on, Ethan drifted off to sleep, his breathing steady and calm. Maya watched him for a moment, her thoughts swirling. She didn't know what the future held, but for the first time in years, she allowed herself to wonder if maybe, just maybe, she wasn't as alone as she'd always believed. *** End of document. ***. The days grew warmer, and the forest seemed to come alive with color. Flowers bloomed in vibrant shades of purple and gold, their petals glistening with morning dew. Birds chirped cheerfully from the treetops, and the air carried a sweet earthy scent that made Maya feel almost peaceful. Almost. Despite the beauty surrounding her, she couldn't shake the weight of the questions Ethan kept asking, or the way those questions stirred emotions she'd buried long ago. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in streaks of orange and pink, Maya returned to the shelter carrying a bundle of herbs she had gathered. Ethan was already there, sitting cross-legged by the fire, sharpening a stick into a makeshift spear. He looked up when he heard her approach and offered a small smile. "I thought we could use this," he said, holding up the spear, "for fishing or hunting. Whatever you need." Maya set the herbs down carefully and examined the weapon. It wasn't perfect, but it was sturdy and well-crafted, a clear sign that Ethan was trying to adapt to her world. She nodded in approval, though her expression remained guarded. "It's good," she said simply. Then, after a pause, she added, "Thank you." Ethan's smile widened slightly at the rare praise. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The only sounds were the crackling of the fire and the distant rustle of leaves in the wind. Finally, Ethan broke the silence. "Tell me about your people," he said softly, his gaze fixed on the flames. "What are they like?" Maya stiffened, her fingers tightening around the bundle of herbs. She hadn't spoken about her village in years, not since she left it behind. The memory still stung, sharp and raw, like an open wound, but something in Ethan's tone, gentle, curious, free of judgment, made her hesitate. "They're proud," she began slowly, choosing her words carefully. "They value strength and unity. They believe in protecting what's ours." Her voice faltered for a moment before she continued. "But they don't trust humans, not anymore." Ethan nodded, his expression thoughtful. "I understand why. Humans have done terrible things here, to your planet, to your people." Maya glanced at him sharply, surprised by his honesty. She had expected defensiveness, maybe even denial. But instead, he met her gaze steadily, his gray eyes filled with regret. "Not all humans are bad," he said quietly. "Some of us just make mistakes. Big ones." Maya looked away, her chest tightening. She wanted to believe him, to think that not every human was driven by greed or cruelty. But history whispered warnings in her ear, reminding her of the cost of misplaced trust. Still, she found herself speaking again, her voice barely above a whisper. "My mother used to tell me stories about humans, about how they came here looking for new worlds to conquer. They promised peace, trade, friendship, but it was all lies. They took our resources, destroyed our homes, and left scars that haven't healed." Ethan lowered his head, shame etched across his face. "I'm sorry," he murmured. "For what they did. For everything." Maya studied him for a long moment, searching for any hint of insincerity. But all she saw was pain. Real, honest pain. It unsettled her, forcing her to confront feelings she had locked away. Compassion, curiosity, even hope. "What about you?" she asked suddenly, surprising herself with the question. "Why are you here? What brought you to Xytheris?" Ethan hesitated, his hands gripping the spear tightly. "I was part of a mission," he admitted. "A scouting mission. We were sent to explore this region, to gather data. I didn't know much about the history between humans and your people until recently. If I had—" He trailed off, shaking his head. "I wouldn't have come." Maya frowned, unsure whether to believe him. His words sounded sincere, but trust wasn't something she gave easily. "And now," she pressed, "if you survive this, if you leave here, what will you do?" Ethan stared into the fire, his jaw tightening. "I don't know yet," he admitted, "but I can promise you one thing. I won't forget what I've seen here. What I've learned from you." The sincerity in his voice caught Maya off guard. She turned away, pretending to sort through the herbs to hide the flush creeping over her cheeks. For so long, She had convinced herself that humans were nothing but trouble, that letting one into her life would only lead to heartbreak. Yet here she was, sitting by the fire with Ethan, sharing parts of herself she had sworn never to reveal. As the night wore on, the conversation shifted to lighter topics. Ethan told her stories about Earth, about its vast oceans, towering mountains, and bustling cities. Maya listened intently, imagining places she would likely never see. In return, she described the wonders of Sci-Stories, the glowing rivers, the bioluminescent forests, the creatures that sang under the moonlight. For the first time in years, Maya felt a flicker of connection, not just to another person, but to the possibility of something more, something she had long denied herself. As sleep claimed her later that night, she wondered if perhaps fear wasn't the only thing keeping her walls intact. Maybe, just maybe, it was also the hope that someone like Ethan might one day help her tear them down. The days melted into weeks, and the rhythm of their lives together began to feel almost natural. Maya woke early each morning, tending to her garden or venturing into the forest to gather food. Ethan followed her lead, learning quickly how to navigate the terrain and identify edible plants. He wasn't as skilled as she was, but his determination made up for his lack of experience. Slowly, he became less of a burden and more of a partner. One afternoon, as they walked side by side through the dense woods, Ethan stopped suddenly. He pointed to a cluster of vines hanging from a nearby tree. "Those berries, are they safe to eat?" he asked, his brow furrowed in concentration. Maya stepped closer, inspecting the small purple fruits. "Yes," she said after a moment, "but only when they're ripe. If you pick them too soon, they'll make you sick." Ethan nodded, carefully plucking a few ripe ones and placing them in the woven basket he carried. "Good to know," he said with a grin. "I'd hate to poison myself after surviving a crash." Maya rolled her eyes, though the corner of her mouth twitched upward. She had grown accustomed to his attempts at humor, even if she rarely let herself laugh out loud. Still, there was something comforting about the way he tried to lighten the mood, as if he understood how heavy her thoughts could be. As they continued their walk, Ethan glanced at her. "You've been teaching me a lot," he said, "about this place, your people, yourself. But I still don't know much about you. Not really." Maya stiffened slightly, her steps slowing. She didn't like talking about herself. It felt too personal, too vulnerable. But Ethan's tone wasn't demanding. It was soft, almost pleading. She sighed, glancing away. "What do you want to know?" "Anything," he replied. "Everything. What makes you happy? What scares you? What do you dream about when you sleep?" His questions caught her off guard. No one had ever asked her such things before, not since she was a child. Most of her life had been spent hiding, protecting herself from pain. Dreams, fears, happiness, they were luxuries she couldn't afford. Yet here was Ethan, asking her to open up in ways she hadn't allowed herself to in years. "I used to love watching the stars," she admitted finally, her voice barely above a whisper. "When I was younger, I would climb to the highest hill near my village and just stare at them. They made me feel small, but in a good way, like my problems didn't matter compared to something so vast." Ethan smiled, his eyes lighting up. "That sounds beautiful. Do you still go stargazing?" Maya shook her head. "Not anymore. Too many memories." Ethan fell silent, sensing the weight behind her words. After a moment, he spoke again. "What about dreams? Do you still have them?" Maya hesitated, her fingers brushing against the bark of a nearby tree. "Sometimes," she said quietly, "I dream of finding somewhere I belong, of being accepted, not because I'm useful or strong or different, but just because I exist." Her honesty surprised even herself. She hadn't meant to say so much, but once the words started, they spilled out like water breaking through a dam. Ethan listened without interrupting, his expression thoughtful. "I think you deserve that," he said finally. "To belong. To be loved for who you are." Maya looked at him sharply, her heart pounding. His words stirred something deep inside her. a longing she had buried beneath layers of fear and self-preservation. For a moment, she considered pulling away, retreating back into the safety of silence. But instead, she found herself holding his gaze, searching for any sign of deceit. All she saw was sincerity. Later that night, as they sat by the fire, Maya found herself thinking about what Ethan had said. She watched the flames dance, their light casting shadows on the walls of the shelter. Beside her, Ethan leaned back, staring at the ceiling with a distant look in his eyes. "You miss Earth, don't you?" she asked suddenly, surprising herself with the question. Ethan turned to her, his smile faint but genuine. "Sometimes, but I don't regret being here. Not anymore." Maya frowned, unsure how to respond. She wanted to ask why, to understand what made him stay despite everything. But before she could speak, Ethan reached over and placed a hand on hers. It was a simple gesture, but it sent a shiver down her spine. "I'm glad I met you, Maya," he said softly. "Even if nothing else happens, I'll always be grateful for that." Her breath caught in her throat, and for the first time in years, she felt tears prick at the corners of her eyes. She didn't know what the future held, but in that moment, she allowed herself to believe, just for a little while, that maybe, just maybe, she wasn't as alone as she thought. End of document. It was mid-morning when Maya noticed the distant hum of voices drifting through the trees. At first, she thought it might be the wind playing tricks on her ears, but as the sound grew louder, her heart began to race. She grabbed Ethan's arm, pulling him behind a thick cluster of bushes. "Stay quiet," she whispered urgently, her eyes wide with alarm. "Someone's coming." Ethan froze, his body tense as he strained to listen. Sure enough, the voices were unmistakable now, low and steady, speaking in her language. They weren't alone anymore. Maya's mind raced. Who could it be? Hunters? Travelers? Or worse, someone from her village? Peering cautiously through the foliage, Maya saw them, a group of 4 figures moving steadily through the forest. Leading the way was Liam an elder from her people known for his stern demeanor and unyielding principles. His presence sent a chill down her spine. If Liam had found her, it meant trouble, not just for her, but for Ethan too. "We need to go," Maya murmured, tugging at Ethan's sleeve. "Now." But before they could retreat, one of the group spotted movement in the bushes. A sharp whistle pierced the air. And within moments, the 4 strangers surrounded them. Maya stepped forward instinctively, placing herself between Ethan and the newcomers. "Maya," Liam said, his voice cold and disapproving. "What are you doing out here? And who is this?" Maya swallowed hard, her throat dry. "He's a survivor," she said carefully. "From a crash. I've been helping him recover." Liam's gaze shifted to Ethan, his expression darkening. "A human," he spat, as though the word itself left a bitter taste in his mouth. "You're sheltering a human." "He was injured," Maya insisted, her voice trembling slightly. "I couldn't leave him to die." "And now?" Liam demanded, taking a step closer. "Do you plan to keep him here forever? Or will you let him breed with you and take what he wants, like all humans do?" The accusation hit Maya like a slap. Her cheeks burned with shame and anger, but she forced herself to stay calm. "That's not what this is," she said firmly. "He's not like that." Liam scoffed, shaking his head. "Humans never change, Maya. You know this better than anyone. Why do you think we warned you about them? Why do you think we told you to stay away?" Ethan stepped forward then, his hands raised in a gesture of peace. "I mean no harm," he said, his tone steady despite the tension in the air. "I'm grateful for Maya's help, but I don't intend to cause trouble. I just want to survive." Liam's eyes narrowed as he studied Ethan. "Survive," he repeated. "And what happens when your kind comes looking for you? When they find out where you are and what you've learned about us?" Ethan hesitated, unsure how to respond. Maya stepped in front of him again, her voice rising with urgency. "He won't tell anyone," she said. "He promised. He's different." "Different?" Liam snapped. "You're a fool if you believe that. Humans lie. They manipulate. They destroy. And you're letting one into our world without thinking about the consequences." The weight of his words hung heavy in the air. Maya felt torn between loyalty to her people and her growing feelings for Ethan. She knew Liam was right about many things. Humans had caused pain before, and trusting one came with risks. But she also knew Ethan wasn't like the others. Not completely. "You can't take him," she said finally, her voice firm despite the fear bubbling inside her. "He's under my protection." Liam's face hardened. "Then you've made your choice," he said coldly. "You've chosen a human over your own kind. Don't expect us to welcome you back." With that, he turned and gestured for the others to follow. As they disappeared into the forest, Maya sank to her knees, her legs unable to support her any longer. Ethan knelt beside her, his hand resting gently on her shoulder. "I'm sorry," he said softly. "This is my fault." Maya shook her head, tears streaming down her face. "No," she whispered. "It's mine. I chose this path. Now we have to live with it." For the first time, she realized the full cost of her decision. The walls she had built around herself were crumbling, leaving her exposed and vulnerable. Yet even as fear gripped her heart, a small part of her felt relief. She had stood up for what she believed in. And for the first time, she didn't feel entirely alone. End of document. The forest seemed darker now, its shadows stretching longer across the ground as if mirroring Maya's unease. She sat by the fire, staring into the flames without really seeing them. Her mind replayed Liam's words over and over again, each one cutting deeper than the last. You've chosen a human over your own kind. The accusation echoed in her head, relentless and unforgiving. Ethan watched her from the other side of the fire, his face etched with guilt. He wanted to say something, anything, to ease the weight pressing down on her shoulders. But he knew no words could fix this. Whatever happened next, it was his presence that had brought trouble to her door. "We need to leave," Maya said suddenly, breaking the silence. Her voice was flat, devoid of emotion, but her hands trembled slightly as she clasped them together. Ethan frowned. "Leave? Where would we go?" "Anywhere but here," she replied, standing up and pacing anxiously. "Liam won't stop. He'll tell the others about you, and they'll come looking. If they find us..." She didn't finish the thought. The implications were clear enough. Ethan stood as well, stepping closer to her. "Then we'll fight them off," he said firmly. "I won't let anyone hurt you." Maya shook her head, frustration flashing in her eyes. "You don't understand. They're not just coming for you. They're coming for me too. If they think I've betrayed them, they won't show mercy." Her words hit Ethan like a punch to the gut. He hadn't considered how much danger he was putting her in. All this time, he'd been focused on surviving, on earning her trust. But now, because of him, she was risking everything. "I'm sorry," he said quietly, his voice heavy with regret. "I never meant to drag you into this." Maya turned to face him, her expression softening just a little. "It's not your fault," she said. "I made my choice. Now we have to deal with it." She moved quickly after that, gathering supplies and packing them into a small satchel. Dried herbs, strips of cured meat, a water pouch, all essentials for survival in the wild. Ethan helped as best he could, mimicking her actions and trying to keep up. Despite the urgency, he couldn't help but notice how methodical she was, how every movement seemed calculated and efficient. It was as if she had spent years preparing for moments like this. By nightfall, they were ready. The shelter they had shared for weeks now felt foreign, almost hostile, as though it no longer belonged to either of them. Maya took one last look around before nodding toward the trees. "Let's go." They traveled under the cover of darkness, sticking to narrow paths and avoiding open spaces where they might be seen. The journey was slow and grueling, the terrain uneven and treacherous. Maya led the way, her senses sharp as she listened for any sign of pursuit. Behind her, Ethan struggled to keep pace, his body still recovering from his injuries. But he refused to complain, knowing that slowing down wasn't an option. As dawn approached, they reached a secluded cave hidden deep within the forest. It was small and damp, but it offered shelter, and most importantly, concealment. Maya gestured for Ethan to enter, then crouched at the entrance, scanning the horizon for any signs of danger. Inside the cave, Ethan collapsed onto the rocky floor, breathing heavily. "This should buy us some time," he said, trying to sound optimistic despite the exhaustion in his voice. Maya joined him, sitting cross-legged and wrapping her arms around herself. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The only sounds were their labored breaths and the distant chirping of birds waking to greet the new day. Finally, Ethan broke the silence. "What happens now?" he asked, his gaze fixed on her. Maya hesitated, her thoughts swirling. She didn't have all the answers, but one thing was certain: running wouldn't solve anything. Sooner or later, they would have to face what was coming. And when that time came, she would need to decide once and for all where her loyalties lay. "For now," she said softly, "we survive. Together." Ethan nodded, a faint smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. In that moment, surrounded by uncertainty and fear, the bond between them felt stronger than ever. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them side by side. End of document. Days passed in the cave, each one blending into the next. The air inside was damp and cool, carrying the faint smell of earth and moss. Maya spent most of her time at the entrance, keeping watch while Ethan rested or tended to their meager supplies. She barely slept, her senses always alert for any sound that might signal danger. But so far, the forest had remained quiet, too quiet. Ethan noticed her growing tension. Her movements were sharp, her words clipped when she spoke at all. He wanted to comfort her, to tell her everything would be okay, but he knew it wouldn't help. Instead, he focused on doing what he could to lighten her burden. He gathered firewood, cleaned their tools, and even attempted to cook a stew using the herbs Maya had collected. It wasn't perfect, but it was edible, and it earned him a rare smile from her. One evening, as they sat side by side near the mouth of the cave, Ethan finally broke the silence. "You've been through so much because of me," he said softly. "I need you to know something." Maya glanced at him, her expression guarded. "What?" "I won't let them hurt you," he said firmly, his voice steady despite the weight of his promise. "If they come for us, I'll do whatever it takes to protect you." Maya stared at him, her chest tightening. His words were sincere, filled with a determination that surprised her. But she also knew how dangerous the situation was, and how little power either of them truly had against her people. Still, there was something comforting about his resolve, even if she didn't fully believe he could keep his vow. "Why?" she asked after a long pause. "Why are you willing to risk so much for someone like me?" Ethan hesitated, searching for the right words. "Because you saved my life," he said finally. "And because I care about you. More than I should, maybe. But I can't ignore what I feel." His confession caught Maya off guard. She looked away, her heart pounding in her chest. She had tried so hard to keep her emotions in check, to remind herself that trusting him was dangerous. Yet here he was, laying his feelings bare without hesitation or fear. Before she could respond, a rustling sound outside drew her attention. She stood quickly, motioning for Ethan to stay silent. Grabbing a spear she had fashioned earlier, she crept toward the entrance of the cave. Peering out cautiously, she saw nothing at first, but then a figure emerged from the shadows. It was Liam, flanked by two others from her village. Their expressions were grim, their weapons drawn. Maya's stomach dropped. She had hoped they wouldn't find them so soon, or at all. "Maya," Liam called out, his tone cold and authoritative. "Step aside. This doesn't concern you anymore." Her grip tightened on the spear. "Leave us alone," she said, her voice firm despite the tremor threatening to betray her fear. "He hasn't done anything wrong." "He's human," Liam snapped. "That's enough. You know what they're capable of." Ethan stepped forward then, positioning himself beside Maya. "I'm not your enemy," he said, raising his hands in a gesture of peace. "I don't want to fight you." Liam's eyes narrowed. "Then come quietly. We'll decide your fate back at the village." "No," Maya interjected sharply. "If you take him, you'll have to take me too." The group exchanged uneasy glances. Liam sighed heavily, clearly frustrated. "You're making a mistake, Maya. One you'll regret." She shook her head, her resolve hardening. "Maybe. But I'm done running. If you want him, you'll have to go through me." For a moment, no one moved. The tension in the air was palpable, thick enough to suffocate. Then, slowly, Liam lowered his weapon. "Fine," he said bitterly. "We'll retreat, for now. But this isn't over." As they disappeared into the forest, Maya sank to her knees, her body trembling with relief and dread. Ethan knelt beside her, placing a hand on her shoulder. "You didn't have to do that," he said quietly. "Yes, I did," she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. "Because I trust you. And because I care about you too." Her admission hung in the air, fragile yet undeniable. For the first time, Maya allowed herself to admit the truth, not just to Ethan, but to herself. Whatever happened next, she knew one thing for certain. She wasn't going to face it alone. End of document. The forest was eerily quiet after Liam and his group left, as if the trees themselves were holding their breath. Maya sat by the entrance of the cave, her spear resting across her lap. Her hands trembled slightly, though she tried to steady them by gripping the weapon tighter. Ethan stayed close, his presence a quiet reassurance, but neither of them spoke. The weight of what had just happened hung heavy between them. Finally, Maya broke the silence. "They'll be back," she said, her voice low and resigned. "Liam doesn't give up easily." Ethan nodded, his jaw tightening. "Then we need a plan. We can't just wait for them to find us again." Maya glanced at him, surprised by the determination in his tone. "What kind of plan?" "There are more of them than us, and they know this land better." "We don't have to fight them directly," Ethan replied. "But we do need to prepare. If we can figure out why they're so afraid of humans, maybe we can use that to our advantage." Maya frowned, considering his words. She had always assumed her people's hatred of humans stemmed from history, centuries of betrayal and exploitation. But now, hearing Ethan talk about it, she realized there might be more to the story. Something deeper, something hidden. "Do you think they're hiding something?" she asked cautiously. Ethan hesitated, his brow furrowing. "I don't know for sure. But I've been thinking, why would they send someone like Liam to track me down? It feels like overkill unless they're worried I might uncover something important." Maya's heart skipped a beat. The idea unsettled her, but it also made sense. Her people weren't ones to act without reason. If they were willing to hunt Ethan this aggressively, then perhaps there was more at stake than just fear of outsiders. "We should go back," she said suddenly, surprising even herself. "What?" Ethan looked at her, alarmed. "Back where?" "To my village," Maya clarified. "If there's something they're trying to protect, we need to find out what it is. Maybe then we can prove you're not a threat, or at least show them they don't need to be afraid." Ethan stared at her, clearly torn. Returning to her village felt like walking straight into danger, but he also knew Maya was right. They couldn't keep running forever. Sooner or later, they would have to confront the truth. "Okay," he said finally, nodding. "We'll go, but we need to be careful." Maya agreed, and together they began preparing for the journey. They packed only what they could carry, focusing on essentials like food, water, and weapons. As they worked, Maya found herself feeling strangely hopeful. For years, she had avoided her village, convinced she didn't belong there. But now, returning felt like taking control, not just of her own fate, but of Ethan's too. The trip took 2 days, the path familiar yet foreign to Maya. Memories of her childhood surfaced with every step. The laughter of friends, the songs sung during festivals, the warmth of belonging. But those memories were tinged with sadness now, reminders of a life she had walked away from. When they finally reached the outskirts of the village, Maya stopped, gesturing for Ethan to stay hidden among the trees. "Wait here," she whispered. "I'll try to find out what's going on." Before he could protest, she slipped away, moving silently through the shadows. The village looked much the same as she remembered. Small huts made of woven branches, fields of glowing crops stretching toward the horizon. But there was an unease in the air, a tension that hadn't been there before. She approached one of the elders, a woman named Nara who had always been kind to her. "What's happening?" Maya asked quietly. "Why are they so afraid of humans?" Nara hesitated, glancing around nervously before pulling Maya aside. "It's not just fear," she admitted. "There's talk of colonization. Humans have been scouting this region for months, mapping our lands. Some believe they're planning to take over." Maya's stomach churned. She had suspected as much, but hearing it confirmed sent a wave of dread through her. She thanked Nara and hurried back to Ethan, relaying the information. "This changes everything," Ethan said grimly. "If they're planning to colonize, your people are right to be afraid. But I swear, I'm not part of that." "I believe you," Maya said firmly. "And now we need to make them believe it too." With that, they stepped into the village together, ready to face whatever came next. End of document. The moment Maya and Ethan entered the village, all eyes turned to them. Whispers rippled through the crowd like a wave, some curious, others hostile. Liam stood near the center of the gathering, his arms crossed and his expression thunderous. He stepped forward, pointing an accusing finger at Ethan. "You have no right to bring him here," Liam growled, his voice cutting through the murmurs. "He's a threat to us all." Maya squared her shoulders, stepping in front of Ethan protectively. "No, he isn't," she said, her voice steady despite the nerves twisting in her stomach. "Ethan knows about the colonization plans. That's why you want him gone, but it's also why we need to work together." The villagers exchanged uneasy glances, unsure how to respond. Maya pressed on, raising her voice so everyone could hear. "Humans are coming, not just one or two, but many. They're mapping our lands, planning to take over. If we fight each other instead of uniting, we'll lose everything." Liam's face darkened. "And what do you suggest?" "Trusting him. Trusting any human." "Yes," Maya replied without hesitation. "Because not all humans are the same. You taught me to fear them, but you never taught me to see the truth, that some might actually help us." Ethan stepped forward then, his hands raised in a gesture of peace. "I didn't come here to harm anyone," he said, his tone calm but firm. "But I won't stand by while my people destroy yours either. If you let me, I can help you prepare. Together, we can stop them." For a long moment, silence fell over the village. The elders exchanged uncertain looks, weighing the risks of trusting a human against the certainty of losing their home. Finally, Nara spoke up, her voice soft but resolute. "She's right," Nara said, addressing the crowd. "We've always fought alone, but this time, maybe we don't have to." Her words seemed to shift something in the air. Slowly, the hostility began to fade, replaced by cautious hope. One by one, the villagers nodded, agreeing to give Ethan a chance. Over the next few days, preparations began in earnest. Maya and Ethan worked alongside her people, teaching them strategies to defend their land. Ethan shared knowledge about human tactics and technology, while Maya instructed her people on using the terrain to their advantage. For the first time in years, Maya felt truly connected to her community, and to Ethan. When the invaders finally arrived, the village was ready. The battle was fierce, but thanks to their combined efforts, they managed to drive the humans back. As the dust settled, Maya stood with Ethan at her side, watching as the last of the ships disappeared into the sky. "You did it," Ethan said, his voice filled with awe. "You saved your people." "We did it," Maya corrected, smiling at him for the first time without reservation. "Together." In the weeks that followed, the village began to heal. Ethan chose to stay, vowing to help rebuild what had been damaged. Though some remained wary of him, most came to accept him as part of their community, thanks in large part to Maya's unwavering support. One evening, as they sat together under the stars, Maya leaned her head on Ethan's shoulder. "Do you think we'll ever really understand each other?" she asked softly. "Humans, and my kind." Ethan wrapped an arm around her, pulling her closer. "Maybe not completely," he admitted, "but I think that's okay. What matters is that we try." Maya smiled, feeling a sense of peace she hadn't known in years. For so long, she had feared letting anyone close, especially a human. But now, she realized that love wasn't about erasing differences. It was about finding strength in them. As the stars twinkled above, Maya allowed herself to believe in a future where trust wasn't a risk, but a reward. ***End of document***.